Welcome to Whatif tutorials. This tutorial covers direct labour. Direct labour as distinct from indirect labour. Indirect labour is included in overhead. Direct labour is the labour involved directly in the production of a product. Firstly, I want to cover direct labour operations in products, how they are created. Secondly, I want to take you through standard labour operations, and these operations are used in many products, or can be used in many products. And finally, I want to take you through the creation of direct labour rates. So we'll close this. Let's go to an item already in the item master. Click item master, and we will select a made item and click labour and overhead. Here you see the operations that have already been created. These operations have a sequence, they belong to a machine. There's a setup component and or a run component to each sequence. You can have setup and run in the same sequence, or you can have a separate sequence for setup and a separate sequence for run. It's up to you. The setup machine minutes here are shown. The setup manning. In the operation, the run operation details are shown. The run machine minutes, the run manning, and here we see the labour minutes, which are the machine minutes extended at the manning for both setup and run. And here we see the labour cost per minute, the efficiency or inefficiency, and thus the labour cost per unit. These added up for each operation give us our total labour cost per unit. Let's close this now. I'd like to run you through the creation of some standard setup operations, and then we'll do some standard run operations. To create a new operation, click New. We need to select the machine. We will select M1. We have a setup code. We have a description. We need a manning, and we need some minutes. So this setup takes 50 minutes for the manning of 2, and that's its code. We'll close that. And now we'll create a run operation. Create operation, machine, factory, that's fine. Operation code, description, output unit, manning, and runtime in minutes per unit or in units per hour. So we might have 400 units per hour running with a manning of 2. That'll gives us 0.15 machine minutes per unit. Okay. So now we've created those. I'll take you back to our item in the item master. And let's now create another labour operation using our standard operations. Click Create. You'll notice now this is sequence 4 being added to the previous sequence 3. It knows the machine. The make quantity it picks up from the make quantity assumptions. And we'll select a standard, and that takes us to the standards already created for this M1 machine, and the one we just created was C1, so we'll use that. So you notice it brings in the manning and the setup minutes. Now the number of setups, it's possible that there may be more than one setup required, so that standard was for a single setup, and mostly there's only one setup required, but it can be changed. Okay, now let's add the run operation, standard, and we created R1, so we'll use that. It's just warning us that the unit of measure doesn't equal the item unit of measure. That's fine. And now we have the manning of 2 and the units per hour and the run minutes per unit shown there. And once again we can repeat the operation more than once if that's required. So that's as simple as that. We won't create another operation. We've now added another operation to other operations already in existence to give us a new labour cost per unit. Okay, so that's how operations are added for labour purposes. Let's now have a look at, exit here, we'll go back into our main menu and we'll look at how we can create a new standard direct labour rate. You can create as many labour rates as you require, and they are created for each machine. Here you see these machines and these rates, but you can have more than one rate for any one machine. So why don't we create another rate for M1? We say new. Okay, so we'll say factory chairs, machine, M1. Okay, we can select this for information purposes. It doesn't have any effect on the outcome. Give it a code, a description, and a date range. For information purposes, once again, comments. Okay. Now we come to the calculation of the direct labour rate. It's in chairs, M1. Shift we can put in here. We've already indicated what it is. Shift code, description, effective date range. So the first thing we have to add in is the number of employees that are involved in this labour rate. Click the green arrow. At the moment there's nothing in here. We want to add. Now we can add individual employees by clicking on this arrow here and selecting employees that have been created in the employees section. Use that employee, he comes in, click OK. So now we have got Blogs Joe at a salary of 70, total 70. But we might want to add a group of people, so we can add, say, 4, cancel that, 4 welders, say, a salary of 65,000 each. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're adding to get a total of 5 people at an average salary of 66,000. That'll do. So this labour rate is based on 5 people with an average salary of 66,000. Next we need to put in the ordinary hours per week. Next we have to calculate the net weeks worked. Now there's available in a year 52. We need to take off the leave time that's applicable. So that brings us down to 44 net weeks worked, because what we're trying to do here is to create a labour rate per hour worked. Next we have to deal with overtime assumptions. There's 3 factors you can use. First factor might be time and a half, and that might be for 2 hours a week. Second factor might be double time for 1 hour a week, and these are assumptions applying to each employee. So if there are overtime worked by some people and not others, you need to consider what the average is here on each employee. Next we've got allowances and on costs. Now you can specify allowances and you can specify on costs that have been pre-created, or you can bring in the defaults. So these are the defaults that have been created previously. This saves having to enter them in each time. So for every labour rate, probably these particular on-cost assumptions will be valid. You'll notice that there's 2 rows, one for ordinary, one for overtime. So some allowances will apply to ordinary and overtime, others will only apply to ordinary. So having done that, we now know that we've now created the labour rate. This area here is for information purposes. It tells us that we've got 1,633 ordinary hours per employee per annum, 132 overtime hours per employee per annum. The rate per hour, ordinary is 40.4, the rate per hour overtime is 57.2, total dollars per annum. This is for information purposes only. The thing we're interested in is the standard direct labour rate per minute of 0.6943 or per hour 41.6. And you can put in some comments in here if you wish. So we click OK. Now we asked here whether this is to be used as a machine default. There's more than one labour rate and that has been created for machine M1. So we'll say no, this is not going to be used because we already have one for machine M1, or yes, in which case this rate here will become the standard rate for machine M1. So let's say yes. Okay, so there's our new rate we've just created. Let's close this and go back to our machine. And in our machine for M1 now, if we edit that, we will see that the labour rate code that is standard is the one we just created. And there we have it. Okay, I'll complete this tutorial at this stage. Thank you.